Are these cameras finally on? All right, so let's just jump straight into it. So what I have here is the new particle mesh hardware. I have the Argon, the Boron, and the Xenon. And let me actually say those in order. So from order of least capable, if you will. I'd say it's probably also the least complicated for them to develop. Xenon, which is mesh and Bluetooth. The Argon, which is Wi-Fi and mesh, and also Bluetooth. And the Boron, which is cellular, mesh, and Bluetooth. So that's kind of from the smallest range to the biggest range. And if you're not familiar with these, they're really awesome. They're kind of the follow-up product to the particle photon, which is this little guy here. It's a little tiny Arduino package. It's a very extremely powerful Arduino in a little package that's programmable over the cloud. You can totally flash over-the-air software, firmware. Actually, everything you do with it is over the cloud. And it's really incredible. I have these deployed in over 100 locations now, where if I have to make a change, I can be in Italy and I'm making changes to my hardware that's deployed in New Jersey. The ultimate game here is that, you know, you would put this in a product that you ship to customers, and then you don't have to go visit those customers. They could be all over the world, millions of them, and flashing updates to them. But that's besides the point. That's not what we're here for today. We are here for the particle mesh hardware. So let's get right into it. These are the pre-order kits. Let me show you here on the side shot. This is so like I said, we're going to start with the Xenon. I also ordered a couple other goodies, which I'll get into these in a minute about why I got those, and some of them I'm not even sure why I got those, but I just got them. All right, so the Xenon. First things first. Let's open this puppy up. Packaging's very nice. Like I said, these are the kits. They have a little breadboard and some components in there. All right, so the first thing we see is a ready for production. Learn the best practices to scale your fleet in our IoT resources hub. So I've found that Particle is very, very good with customer service, and you know, they really are the best route, I think, to go from zero to IoT if you have something you want to roll out. All right, so first things first, we got this nice little, I'm assuming ESD baggie. That's paper, which is, don't know that I've ever actually received anything in a paper ESD baggie before. So let's pull this out, and well, maybe it's, I'm only assuming it's ESD, but it doesn't matter. So, all right, so here's our Xenon. And right off the bat, first thing is it's the same footprint as the Adafruit Feather platform. Uh-oh, we have company. See, this is the problem when you build a lab with a water heater in it. Alexa, turn off the water heater. I hope nobody's taking a shower. All right, so this is the Xenon. This is the mesh-only version. So this is mesh and Bluetooth, I should say. And what's interesting here is that if you look closely, this has an onboard, I thought it was going to be a chip antenna, but it's actually an onboard in the like in the PCB there, that little zigzaggy thing. That is the onboard mesh antenna. So you don't have to hook up an external antenna to this guy to connect it to mesh. Now this guy would require either an Argon or a Boron to exist around it somewhere to work, because they are the ones who get it connected to the network. I assume you can do some other things with Bluetooth, although I haven't really looked into what you can do with that. I'm assuming that's just if you wanted to make it into a, you know, maybe you can turn into a keyboard or something and have it spit out some serial data into an iPad, perhaps. I don't know, but I'll try it and we'll see. All right, and then we have a Bluetooth antenna port here. It looks like a UFL to me. All right, and then we have, looks like our mode and reset buttons. We have a battery port here, which is for a LiPo battery pack here, if you wanted to power it that way. In fact, this probably has a charge on it, so we can just see what happens. Oh, there we go, look at that. It looks like it was just powered up into, I guess, soft AP mode. I haven't actually ever fired one of these up. You're opening it with me right now. The other port here, there's a couple things I wasn't expecting, actually. I haven't followed along. This looks like the JTAG port here with a little fancy JTAG port cover. Hope this is clear. Maybe if I shut off that blinky doodle, it'll be a little bit clearer there. All right, so that is the JTAG port there. And micro USB, which would be how you power it, program it. I'm sure you can do some, you can connect to the CLI with that, I'm sure. I mean, I shouldn't be 100% sure, I just haven't played with one of these yet. All right, and then we have our, like I said, we have our RGB LED, which was flashing blue a moment ago. This does have a D7 LED here, so you can actually do the same thing you could do with the Photon, where you can just talk, you know, D7 high. You'll get that guy to turn on for you. And then there's a charge LED, which is interesting. So that's only going to come on when the battery is actually being charged, but it doesn't come on when you just power it, I assume. So we can actually try that. Let's fire this up. Let's give it some power. Oh, we got a little flicker for a split second. It looks like D7's floating, perhaps. It's a little bit of dimness there. And I assume that the charge LED will come on once I insert this guy. Wow, this is actually most likely fully charged. So maybe I can't demonstrate that today. We can always try. We have other batteries around here. All right, let's see what happens when we plug in a brand new battery, probably not charged. There we go. All right, so this looks a lot like a feather. If you've ever seen a feather hooked up to power with a charging battery, same thing, amber LED. This is a really nice platform. I'm really happy that they chose to go with feather for this because I actually use the feather platform quite a bit. This is my collection of feather parts here. I use them all over the place. I actually have a feather project right here that I shared, how to control candles using your Amazon Echo. Very cool project right here. Let's see if she still wants to play nice. Alexa, turn on the candles. No, I just unplugged her actually to steal power, so that's not going to work. That's a whole other thing. All right, so there we go. This is the Xenon. Let's see, on the bottom here, on the bottom we have something new. We have an NFC port. Okay, so this is something I didn't know we were going to get when I actually placed the order. It may not even have been announced yet. This is the NFC antenna connector. I'm not sure what they plan on doing with that, but I can think of probably 45 things that I would use that for if it ends up being, you know, what I think it's going to be. So anyway, that's Xenon. So let's move on. Oh, actually, sorry. Let's take a look at what else we have here. We have this little baggie that comes with the other parts. Now, in my opinion, no offense, Particle, but this isn't really all that necessary. Perhaps the breadboard is, but even still, I mean, here's why. You already give us the RGB LED that we can control with software. You give us the D7 output that we can control. I understand that there's some value in being able to perhaps hook up pins. But anyway, let's see what we have in here. You don't need the pins. My point is you can just buy the Argon or buy any one of them and write some code and you can watch it work without ever having to plug anything other than power. All right, so I don't know what these LEDs are. Perhaps maybe somebody can help me with that. There's 2 resistors and 2 LEDs here. I don't know. Probably one is red and the other one is, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's a surprise. Let's see what this is saying here. Components. Oh, here we go. 2 resistors, 1 red LED, and 1 photodiode. All right, so that's why they do it. All right, so maybe you would just wire up an input and you'd have some fun with it. So that's what that's for. That's the starter project. I mean, I don't ever actually use the components, but in this case, I think the only way to order it was to order the kit, or maybe I just added the kit because I don't remember when I placed the order, what I was thinking. So anyway, let's move on to the next one here, which is the Argon. And to me, for my personal use, this will probably be the one that I use the most. The Argon kit is the Wi-Fi, mesh, and Bluetooth, and I don't know that I'm actually going to use Bluetooth, but certainly I'll be using Wi-Fi. So here we go. This is it right here. This is the fancy box that it comes with. And this, I expect, is going to require an antenna. All right, another card here. In here we have, oh, here it is, the Argon. All right, so the top looks very similar. Let's see if, where did he go? All right, the top is very similar. Let me move this box out of the way so you can see. They do look very similar. Pinouts the same. We have an extra antenna port here. One is for Wi-Fi, one is for Bluetooth. We have our same button, same JTAG port. This one doesn't have a cover on it. I don't know if that's a QC issue or maybe somebody got to these before I did in my house. I do have a 2-year-old. Okay, so anyway, all the rest of the components on the top are the same. Looks like, you know, obviously the radio is a little different, but that shouldn't impact you in any way. Let's take a look at the bottom here. All right, so on this guy we have a substantial shield here over the base, and then we have a couple more components, and we have the same NFC antenna, or the antenna port, the UFL. I'm assuming that's a UFL port there, and so we're gonna have fun with that when that capability is turned on. My understanding is it may not be on yet, but whenever it is, we'll have some fun with it. So that's the first 2. Oh, that's like nails on a chalkboard. Was that my cover? Maybe that's the one I took off. I don't know. All right, let's move on to. Oh, here we go. There's an antenna. Like I said, so this one does require an antenna. Heads up to anybody who uses the Photon, you are going to need an external antenna for this guy for Wi-Fi. There is no onboard chip antenna anymore. The onboard antenna is for mesh only. All right, let's take a look at this antenna. Now, I have had issues in the past with the antennas that I purchased directly from Particle. I shouldn't say issues, but I found that the ones that I get from SparkFun have a much better, let's just say they have better results. I'm not advising that anybody uses a different antenna. You should certainly use the antenna that came with it. I'm just telling you from some of my testing, I did get better results with the ones from SparkFun. But that might be an FCC problem. So beyond testing it, I recommend that you make sure you know what you're doing. So this is the antenna, pretty little antenna. It has the word particle stamped on there. Let's make sure I can get this guy in focus here. Come on, there we go. Got particle on there, 2.4 gigahertz band antenna. No adhesive backing. That's important actually to note, because for a lot of projects you may want to put this in a plastic enclosure, and maybe you wanted to have that adhesive backing. I know that's what I do in all of mine, but that's not a big deal. You can just take some adhesive and stick it on there. So that's the Argon and the Xenon, and let's see if the little component pack here is the same. And it is, the description is the same on here, so I'm going to just assume it's the same. We're not going to go through that a second time. Just add it to the pile of breadboards. Last but not least, it's actually last but most, is the Boron. Now this guy, if you're like me, you're going to find some pleasant surprises in here, I think. All right, so the Boron, we have our little card. We have our Boron. The Boron, one of the questions I had asked her during the early development days of this in a Twitter live stream or whatever you want to call it, there was like a webcast, and one of the questions I had, and I didn't really get an answer to it, was how about using SIMs from other carriers? Because this has an eSIM or an embedded SIM in it. Well, it turns out when I got it, I learned the answer, and that is, have a look. It does have a SIM card slot. Here, let me grab a little pointer here. So we have a SIM card slot, and there's also an eSIM somewhere in this mix, but that's very nice. So this, oh, what's that? All right, so that's a chip antenna, but what is it for? So I don't know the answer to that one. We are going to have to do a little bit of investigating, because that looks like a chip antenna to me. So this guy, let's take a look at the top here. We have an antenna on top, although I don't see any markings on it. The other ones have markings. Like this one says BT, this one says Wi-Fi, and that one says BT. This one doesn't have any markings on there. So the bottom one is marked BT. This one's marked NFC next to the SIM slot. This is a micro SIM slot, which I'm going to play around with that when I get a moment. In fact, maybe I'll do a video on how to get this baby connected. And so that you can only assume, and with almost 100% certainty, that that is the cellular antenna. But then what is this? Okay, so that's what this is. This must be the mesh antenna is a chip antenna on the Boron, but it's a zigzag PCB antenna on the other two. See that space is there, and they must have run out of room on the board, and they just stuck this little chip antenna on the bottom. That would be my safe bet there. But everything else here is the same. We have our again, the JTAG port doesn't have a little cover, so I don't know what the point of the cover on one of them was and not on the others. So maybe it's just they didn't have them in the factory. I don't know. Then we have our battery connector here, same deal. But I'm going to fire this baby up, all three of them, and I'm going to get them to talk to each other. And there's a couple things that I still don't know. Sorry, that's probably like nails on a chalkboard to a lot of people. A few things I still don't know about these is, like, if you have two Borons as your points to the network and you have mesh devices in that network, can you have more than one gateway? Can you have failover? That'd be really cool. Let's say you have a mesh network that connects to the cellular network as well as one that, that same mesh network has an endpoint or a gateway to the internet over cellular as well as a gateway over Wi-Fi. That'd be really useful in an environment where you have a high reliability requirement. So that way if your Wi-Fi goes down, someone hits a pole, and the internet goes out, you can still get another connection. And I know there's other ways to perform that, but that would be really cool. All right, and the last component here is the cellular antenna. So this is it right here. Okay, so I'll never say the name right. Teoglass. Wow, that's something else. All right, so this, I'm familiar with the old antenna that came with the Electron. It was hard. It was a hard plastic. This is, or it's a hard like substrate, maybe a printed circuit board substrate, whatever you call that stuff. This is a flexible antenna, so I can presume one-time use. You may not get that off the windshield, but it does have a 3M adhesive on the back. This is a 200 MP. You can look that up if you want specs on it, but I would assume it's highly permanent adhesive. These guys make really good products. Yeah, it's pretty good tack there. So once you put this on, it's not coming off, and if it does, you're probably gonna have to order another one. The nice thing is the part number's there, and you can find them online in the event that you do need to find a replacement for it. If you do affix it to a window or the inside of a plastic enclosure, and you don't want to not be able to use your boron. I keep mixing up the names because they're all so similar. All right, and one last thing here after the 3 units that I got, the 3 devices I got, I also got a couple extra things here, and I just want to show you what they are, why I got them, just so you know that they exist in case they make sense for you to also get them. One of them is the Ethernet Featherwing. The reason I got this is, and I also want to show you the difference between this version and the Adafruit version, because there's a major difference between the two. 2 major differences right off the bat. So this is the Ethernet Featherwing from Particle that it gives you the ability to plug this baby into a hardwired connection. I personally prefer hardwired connections, and this would be a fantastic addition to the mesh platform, which it is a fantastic addition. But here is the Adafruit version, right here. And this guy, as you'll see, is much more compact. Now, one of the beefs that I have with this design here, with the entire mesh hardware design, is that unlike the Feather platform, you can't plug your wings on top. So this is a Feather wing. This is a NeoPixel Feather wing, and I'd like to be able to connect that to the top of one of my mesh devices, but I can't because they've already pre-soldered all the pins, and they're all male pins. There's a male header on the bottom, no female header on the top. And without that female header on top, I can't get these wings connected. And I have display wings, and I have, various wings that I want to use here, and I can't. So one of those is the Ethernet Feather wing from Adafruit. Actually, I just opened a new one here. I didn't have to. And you cannot connect it because there are no headers there. So I'd have to desolder the header that's pre-soldered onto here in order to use the offerings from Adafruit. So what they offer here is this version of the Ethernet Featherwing that allows you to put one mesh device here, and then you can add an additional Featherwing next to it. And you can see that becomes a bit larger and bulkier than what you might want. So they're not stackable, I guess is the term, or they don't stack the way the rest of the platform stacks. And so that was a little bit of a bummer to me when I saw that. I guess maybe they'll eventually offer them without headers, and you can just add your own headers. That would be fantastic. But like if I wanted to do this would be my setup with the NeoPixel Featherwing and a Boron, and I'd have an Ethernet adapter, which in this case you really don't need. You probably have some use for both of these, but this would be more practical if it was, say, a Xenon here, because that way the Xenon would get its connection to the internet through this Ethernet port. So that's one of the add-ons I got. The other add-on, let's see, I got this guy. This is called a classic adapter. Now the nice thing about the classic adapter is that you can take your new mesh hardware. If you're like me, you have 150 relay boards laying around or in use from the particle photon days, which hopefully the photon's here to stay. So this guy would just plug right into here. Now, this is nice. I really like it, but keep in mind there are extra pins on here. Look how many extra pins there are, because this adapter is sized for the electron, so that you can plug it into anything that fits an electron. So look how many pins are on there compared to what is on a photon relay board. So the photon relay board, you're gonna have all these extra pins laying out the back of it if you plan on using it that way. Now I ordered a whole bunch of these because they were on sale on Black Friday for like $2 or $3. So I just ordered a stash of them because I'm gonna probably be needing them. But I didn't realize that it had all these extra pins. I'm ready to get the Sawzall out and start chopping pins off of here. And I'll show you another reason why I don't like that. I wish they came up with 2. They should have really come up with a photon adapter board and an electron adapter board, and here's why. This is the Adafruit NeoPixel ring that they have for the photon, and I didn't solder my headers on here yet, but here's a close-up of that. So I have several applications for this where I'm going to be using photons, but I'd love to use mesh. Mesh would be fantastic in this application because all these will be within about 200 feet of one another, and I'll have a cluster of them. Maybe I'll have 75 of these within a 300-foot area. So perfect application for mesh. Hardware already exists. All I have to write is some software, but the adapter board is too big for this. So as you can see, the adapter board overhangs this board by like an inch, and all those extra pins are in there, and you can't see the ring anymore. So it sounds like a very specific complaint, but you're going to probably see that when you go to use the adapter board, there aren't that many scenarios other than in a lab testing environment where it's useful. If you're using these products to go to market, this isn't going to be a problem for you at all because you're really not going to care about those overhanging pins in a lab environment. You're only going to really care about that if you are using this in a lot of cases where I use it, I have to go fix a problem for something in my life or one of my businesses, and I just say, all right, I need to go make Wi-Fi, fix my problem. So I live with these once I use them, and I just tend to buy hardware that exists because I need something I can roll out in 30 minutes. I'm not going to design a PCB if I don't have to. And so for most developers going to market, you're not going to care about this because you're not actually going to use an adapter board in your finished product. But it's going to be ugly while it's in the lab. If you're going to be going from a mesh hardware or from the feather wing to the, from the feather platform to the original electron platform and then sticking it into the original photon socket. All right, so that is, all right. So that is the end of that guy. And the final piece of hardware I ordered here is the cable, the debugger, which I don't know, what do we have here? Okay, so for the debugger, we have a little cable, and we have a little USB debugger. Now, it's not what I was expecting it to look like. All right, so I don't know much about this. It has some pins on the top, like a socket here, that I don't know. I don't know what this is for. Can this fit on here? It doesn't even fit on there. So I don't know what the top pins are for. I'm going to have to go do some research on that one. But this cord right here, this little ribbon cable, we're getting into the days of itty-bitty ribbon cables. This is no IDE cable, I can tell you that. So this is keyed. This is a little ribbon cable that you would put into the JTAG port on your mesh hardware. So you'd put it here, plug this into USB, and then connect to the JTAG port on one of these guys. And this is so if you wanted to change boot, I guess if you want to change the bootloader, or if you want to, I don't know, maybe you can, I don't know why you can't just do, that would be, you would require this to do some bootloader stuff unless you're doing some JTAG testing on the board or whatever. But, in my cases, I'm just going to use a USB. I'm sure I can just do something from the command line with it. But, yeah, I don't know if I'm actually going to have a purpose for this, but it's nice to have it. You never know. Has a little reset button on the side here. But I think I have another one of these coming in, actually. I placed another order for a bunch of other hardware just to get it going. All right, so that's pretty much it. I don't have much else to demonstrate here. I will do a comparison video for you that will compare the photon and the Argon, so that you have an idea what the differences are. I'm not going to get into extreme detail though, so stay tuned for that, or look for that, because I might actually put that up first. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.